Hi, Red Knights. Today's paired selection is called Five Questions for George MacDonald. The genre of this text is expository text, which means that it is a text that has real facts and information that we can learn from. We're going to compare texts. Read what the manager of the National Park Service's youth programs thinks about visiting parks. We're going to listen to the passage and stop and ask questions in between.
5 questions for George MacDonald. The National Park Service will celebrate its 100th anniversary on August 25th. George MacDonald is the Park Service's youth programs manager. He spoke with TFK's Elizabeth Winchester. You were raised in New York City. How did you experience national parks when you were a kid? I used to climb trees around Grant's tomb and attend concerts there. I also have memories of visiting the Statue of Liberty. What are you doing to achieve your goal to give more people access to national parks and sites? I work on the development of new sites that target minority groups, like the African Burial Ground in New York City and the Tuskegee Airmen National Historic Site in Alabama. The Find Your Park program encourages families to visit parks and share their experiences. Why? It is important for young people and their families to identify with these magnificent places because they belong to everyone. Find Your Park encourages more people to appreciate our country's valuable resources and to also protect them. Kids get free admission to national parks. The Every Kid in a Park program gives free admission to the families of 4th graders. Why? Reaching kids at this age increases their chances for academic success. I visited the national monuments in Washington, D.C. when I was in the 4th grade, and it led to lifetime dedication to studying history. Our goal is to continue the Every Kid in a Park program. We want to have a lasting positive impact. What is your favorite park, and how can kids celebrate the Park Service? Yosemite is my favorite. It is so beautiful. To celebrate, go out to a park and have fun. Caption: Yosemite National Park is in California. It covers 1,200 square miles.
How does George MacDonald give more people access to sites and national parks? Yes, he helps develop special programs like Find Your Park and Every Kid in a Park.
Places to visit. Yosemite National Park is just one of many landmarks and monuments in the United States. Here is a look at some others. What do you think you can learn from each one? Statue of Liberty National Monument. Location: New York City, New York. Date created: 1886. Why it's important. The statue is a symbol of freedom and liberty. France gave it to the United States as a gift of friendship. It stands in New York Harbor. Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Location: Tennessee and North Carolina. Date created: 1934. Why it's important. The park is one of the last large hardwood forests in the country. It's a safe place for many animals. There are about 1,500 black bears in the park today. John F. Kennedy Space Center. Location: Cape Canaveral, Florida. Date created: 1965. Why it's important. The first men to walk on the moon blasted off from the Kennedy Space Center in 1969. Since then, NASA has launched more than 135 missions from here. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. Location: Washington, D.C. Date created: 2011. Why it's important. Martin Luther King Jr. wanted all people to have the same rights. He inspired people to fight for the rights of African Americans.
After listening to this section being read, why is Places to Visit a good title for this section? The title Places to Visit lets the reader know what the main idea of the section is. Each place described is a good place for people to visit. Make connections. What can you learn from visiting landmarks? You can learn about history and culture of a particular place. For example, you can learn about space and technology at the Space Center, forests and wildlife at the national parks, and important people and ideas at monuments. How are these landmarks and monuments like others you have read about? People can visit any of them to learn about the history and culture of the place. For example, the story Protecting Our Parks tells about how people can learn about nature by visiting our national parks. In this text, called Five Questions for George MacDonald, the author explains that people can learn more about nature and about history by visiting landmarks and monuments. All right, boys and girls, I hope you have enjoyed listening to this paired selection called Five Questions for George MacDonald.